we have in the house Brother Baldemar Velasquez, and he is the president of the Farm Labor Organization. And believe me, I was around when Caesar was around, so let's go, brother.
Thank you, Dennis, and all you good people who gave such riveting remarks, taken to heart. I wrote an op-ed piece for the Toledo Blade 3 Sundays ago, and I wrote in there that immigration reform isn't going to solve all the farm workers' woes. It'll remove one impediment to assimilating 11 million undocumented people, including farm workers, into the mainstream of American society as taxpayers, job creators, and citizens in our communities. However, what we won't have, what immigration reform does not address, the economic inequities where these people are employed and where they're working. As far as the farm workers are concerned, instead of having undocumented and exploited workers, you'll have documented and exploited workers. So I make the point that, taking a lead from Saladin's comments, in 1935, when Roosevelt passed the National Labor Relations Act, which many of your unions have benefited from over the years, he needed the Southern Dixiecrats to pass the law. And seeing that at that time that agricultural workers and domestic workers were black, the white Dixiecrats couldn't see that black people would have the same rights as their white counterparts. So they excluded agriculture and domestic workers from the NLRA. And we have lived with that race's legacy to today. And all the subsequent labor reforms continue to exclude agricultural workers, including the Employee Free Choice Act, excludes agriculture and domestic workers. So we have nothing. We've never had nothing. So nothing then has to be turned into an advantage, because when you got nothing to lose, that becomes a valuable asset. Because frankly, I think that's one of the things that drags down the labor movement, because they're wallowing in the wealth and the affluence that were created by the unions. They got so much stuff right now, they're afraid to lose it. So solidarity becomes, oh, if I can afford it. Solidarity becomes, oh, if I have time, but I have to keep my obligations to my employer over here. And the employers play us off against each other. In Ohio, everybody remembers the Senate Bill 5 fight over there. They tried, the governor got the Republican legislature, just like in Wisconsin, to pass that Senate Bill 5, dismantling public service unions. We put it on the ballot to fight back, issue 2. And so there was a big campaign around that. And the mayor of Toledo, African American, came out of the firefighters, was the only big city mayor that supported Governor Kasich. And he created a legislative piece in the Toledo City Council to ram an equivalent city bill to ram this oppressive collective bargaining contract down Local 7, AFSCME Local 7 in Toledo's down their throat. So I get a call from the state president of ASME, and he asked me, Baldemar, you're pretty well known in Toledo. Can you go into city council and weigh in? I said, well, hold on. Let me call you back in a couple of hours. At that time, the farm workers we had in Ohio were the fresh market tomato packing. We have unionized from the shed to the field over 500 fresh market tomato packing workers in Oak Harbor, Ohio. So I talked to all my field leaders. I said, look, we should support these ASME people in Toledo because we need their help. And the workers asked me, well, how do we need their help? I said, well, you know all those anti-immigrant pieces of legislation to try to pass in Columbus, Ohio? You know why we affiliated our union to the state AFL-CIO? So we can use their lobby to fight against those bills. So we fight those bills, not just the farm workers, but we have all the unions fighting those Arizona-type bills. And they said, you're right, we should support them. So we organized a one-day sympathy strike on the day of that city council meeting and shut down the entire fresh tomato packing industry in Northwest Ohio in support of ASME Local 7 and bust those workers to city council. There were so many Mexicans in that city council hall, they couldn't get the white people in there. When the city council people all paraded in to take their seats, we started chanting, El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. All the white people didn't know we were chanting, but they were clapping with us because they knew we were on their side. The first councilman to speak up said, I move to order the mayor back in the negotiation with the last best offer to ASME Local 7. It passed unanimously. Even the Republicans voted for it because they don't want to be in that room with all the Mexicans. So in 10 days, they had a new union contract, Local 7. Right. So the employer who runs the package says that Baldemar said, you got a no strike clause in your contract. And I said, yeah, his name is Charlie. He said, Charlie said, but you're going to have to look the other way on this one. Well, what do you mean by that? I said, well, because Charlie, if you look at the state AFL-CIO that helps me stop all those anti-immigrant bills, if you look at the delegates to the state convention, about 50% are from ASME OPSI delegates, so the largest union, and we need their help to stop those anti-immigrant bills because if any of them passes, you're going to lose most of your workforce out here because 75% of our members out there are undocumented workers. Wow. He said, you're right, Baldemar, I'll have to look the other way. But I'm telling you that how we finesse this issue in terms of labor rights is critical at this point, because I don't have any hopes that Congress or the AFL-CIO is going to push collective bargaining for agricultural workers in this country. So we have to find a way to do it ourselves. Because I'll tell you what, we don't have to mess around with politicians to get the deals that we try to push that we have done with Campbell's Soup, with Heinz USA, Dean Foods, Vlasic Pickle, the Mount Olive Pickle Company. Everybody said when we took them on, Baldemar, you can't beat those companies. You're just a bunch of tomato pickers, pickle pickers, farm workers who don't have nothing. You don't have power. You can't even vote. You know, how are you going to overcome these people and compel them to negotiate an agreement with you? I don't know. We just fight. And we've tried to find a way to do what the only time I met Dr. Martin Luther King, he said one thing that just stuck to my mind, and that's when we were down in Atlanta planning the Poor People's Campaign. And that talk went on, and the discussion was, how do we as poor people who have nothing can compel some of the biggest, richest people, the world's largest corporation, to sit down and talk to us as equal? I'll never forget his words. He said, when you impede the rich man's ability to make money, anything is negotiable. So, when we took on Mount Olive Pickle Company, they said, you can't do that, this is in the South. when the AFL-CIO announced they organized the South campaign, I went to those meetings for 6 months. Every month I went to 6 meetings, and I said, well, let's choose North Carolina. It's the least unionized state in the country. Where else do we need organizing in the South? And he said, no, we got to choose Dallas. We got to choose Miami. We got to choose Atlanta, where there's union density. Well, wait a minute. You want to organize the South? Go organize where it's not organized. Didn't make any sense to me. I said, okay, you guys do what you want to do. I'm going to go to North Carolina. And when we brokered that Mount Olive fight, got 7,000 workers covered under a collective bargaining agreement on 600 farms. But what we did is that we tried to find a way to impede their ability to make money. And the driving force of any corporation, everything in this day and age is about branding, branding, branding. And you have to negate the brand. And when you do enough of that, long enough, something's got to happen. And I can't tell you when this fight with Reynolds America is going to end. It don't matter when it's going to end to me. What matters is that we made the commitment to fight, 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 and don't give up until something happens. That's all you got to do. So you got to pick your target, grab on, and don't let go, and keep coming after them in creative ways. It's crazy. I mean, this Reynolds did for 4 years. They said, we'll never talk to Flock. They'll talk to the black pastors. They'll talk to Richard Trumka. They'll talk to anybody, but they were not going to talk to Flock. For 4 years they said that. So British American Tobacco owns 42% of Reynolds. So we took the fight to Europe. I did a speaking tour of the 4 countries, the highest consumption of British American tobacco products: Germany, Italy, Turkey, and the UK. And I got the IUF. We affiliated with the IUF so they could set up the tour for us. I got the Germans mad at them. Got the Italians didn't need any help getting mad at them. They're already mad at them. And the Turks were great. The Turks really landed it to them, including, they even set me up a meeting with the head of British American Tobacco for Turkey in Istanbul. I went and talked to this guy, and he was an Italian guy. And me and this farm worker, tobacco worker, who I brought with me from Mexico, San Antonio said, well, excuse me, I want to talk to these fellows in Spanish. Talk fluent Spanish. And we was talking to us, and he says, you know, you don't have to tell me anymore. I believe everything you're telling me about the plight of those farm workers going from Mexico to the United States as guest workers, H-2A workers. I said, well, how do you know that? He said, because British American Tobacco has a processing facility in Monterrey, Mexico, and I was the manager of that plant for 4 years, and I heard the same stories on the street. He said, look, I can't tell Reynolds America what to do in the United States, but I can weigh in with my superiors in London. By the time I got to London, British American Tobacco was calling for a meeting with us. And at the shareholders meeting the next day, when I spoke, William Burroughs, the chair of the board, says, well, after hearing this distressing report from these people speaking here, we pledged the dialogue. And he said, give us time to talk to Reynolds America. The shareholders meeting, the following one, they said, okay, we'll talk to Flock for the first time in a broad stakeholder gathering. And but they still wouldn't talk to us one-on-one. That has come to pass just in the last 6 months. So at the shareholders meeting Thursday, is why I wasn't here earlier. I just got off a plane today. I got up at 4 o'clock this morning to drive to Raleigh and get on a plane to get here. We had 400 demonstrators outside. We had over 50 people inside rattling the CEO and everybody inside. The CEO, Dan Dillon, and the Vice President, Mark Holton, came to me after the shareholders meeting and said that we would set up a meeting the week after next week. I talked to him yesterday, and they are coming to Toledo on the 22nd to talk to us. And I think this is where the rubber hits the road in terms of putting the issues on the table. And they're not going to get away without giving us the representation of workers in their tobacco chain. Finally, you've heard already. The writers of the word in the book of Exodus. Go back to chapter 22, where it says, do not mistreat or oppress the alien. And you heard it, because you were once aliens in Egypt yourselves. And I brought you out of that. I brought you out of the mire. And woe to those that stand in your way and impede you, because I will burn them up with the fires of rebellion that I will bring against you. And so it is in the book of Numbers. Those who wrote the words in the book of Numbers, chapter 15, verse 15 says that you shall govern the alien with the same laws as you govern yourselves. And woe to those that impede the formation of those laws to govern them in the same ways as you govern yourselves. Because I will burn you up with the fires of rebellion that I will bring against you. And so it is that the prophets wrote in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 22, verse 30, says, I'm calling for a man to stand in the gap on behalf of the land so I won't have to destroy it. And verse 29 tells you why God was going to destroy the land. Because you denied the poor. You charge excessive interest to your neighbor, causing usury in the land, and denying the aliens their rights. So I asked you to stand in the gap and be part of the fire to burn the impurities from this system, from those oppressors that take advantage of people to try to marginalize and polarize wealth in this country for their own benefit, using all these schemes. Because woe to those that make unjust laws. And you have to be the fire. You have to be the gap standers to say, we have had enough. I don't care what the unions decide. I don't care what anybody decides. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to fight. Because in the end, that's the only thing that's going to get you those things that you call victories. See, the issue is not about winning or losing. That's not it. Because if I have so much that I can't take the risk that needs to be taken in this urgent times, then forget it. You don't belong as part of the fire. And don't worry, because God promises that He'll watch over us. The good people of the land are going to prevail. You'll be like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You will dance in the fires and not be burned up. All the impurities around you are going to be burned up. And you'll be left standing there in glory and honor and justice for the people next to you. And that's what we should stand for. And if you're not there, you don't belong here. You need to be in the fight. And don't give up any reason why you shouldn't be in it. If it's going to take, I give up my pension, it's going to give up, what the heck? When you die, you ain't going to take it with you anyway. Come on, people. I don't have a pension, and I ain't asking for one. Because if I did, I probably want to hang on to it. If farm workers don't have a pension, when they get one, then I'll take what they get. I'm saying, if you want to believe in equity and equality in this country, come up and start living it.